Funny. Mothers usually don't leave their daughters sleeping outside in the rain. Vincent Moretti's voice was quiet, but it traveled across the ballroom with enough weight to stop every conversation beneath the crystal chandeliers. 6 months ago, Amara Brooks had owned one broken suitcase, $43, and a phone containing a message from her mother telling her never to come home. Tonight, the 19-year-old black woman stood at the top of a sweeping marble staircase wearing a sapphire blue gown, while some of Chicago's wealthiest families turned to watch her descend beside the most feared man in the room. Vincent Moretti, 38, dressed in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, moved with the calm authority of someone who never needed to announce his importance. Yet when Amara reached the final step, he offered his hand with surprising gentleness. "Careful," he murmured. "That last step is higher than it looks." Amara smiled. 6 months earlier, she would have apologized simply for needing help. Now she accepted his hand without shame. That change alone would have stunned the family who had abandoned her, but they were about to discover something far more difficult to understand. Vincent had not brought Amara into his home as a servant. He had not treated her as charity. Somewhere between the rainy night when he found her outside his gates and this glittering evening, the guarded man had begun treating her like family. He remembered how she took her coffee. He made sure the kitchen stocked the cinnamon cereal she secretly loved. When he learned she had abandoned college to help pay her family's bills, he quietly made certain she could return to school. And tonight, when Amara had nervously asked whether the gown was too elegant for her, Vincent had looked almost offended. "Amara, clothes don't decide whether you belong in a room." She had carried those words down the staircase. Then a familiar voice shattered everything. "Amara." Her smile disappeared. Across the ballroom stood a middle-aged woman in a cream-colored dress, one hand pressed against her chest. Amara knew that face better than her own. She knew the tired eyes, the careful smile, the small gold cross resting against her collarbone. She also remembered that same face watching through a living room window while Amara stood outside with her suitcase in the rain. "Mom." The word escaped before she could stop it. Heads turned. Vincent's expression changed immediately. He had heard enough about Amara's past to recognize the danger wasn't physical. It was the quieter kind, the kind that reopened wounds people spent months learning to live with. Amara's mother hurried forward as though 6 months of silence could be erased by crossing a polished floor. "Baby, we've been looking everywhere for you." Amara froze. Her mother reached toward her, but Vincent calmly stepped between them. He didn't touch the woman. He didn't raise his voice. He simply became an immovable wall in a black tuxedo. "Mr. Moretti," the woman said, forcing a nervous smile, "this is a family matter." Vincent glanced back at Amara. He could see her fingers trembling against the blue fabric of her dress. But he didn't answer for her. That was something he had promised himself he would never do. Amara had spent too much of her life being told where she belonged. Vincent would protect her right to choose, even from him. "Then," he said quietly, stepping half a pace aside, "I suppose Amara should decide what happens next." Her mother stared. Amara lifted her eyes. And suddenly, beneath 1,000 lights and 100 watching faces, she was no longer the abandoned girl standing outside a locked door. But to understand how she had become this woman, you have to go back 6 months, to a freezing Chicago night, a broken suitcase, and the moment Amara Brooks heard the 4 words that changed her life forever: "Don't come back home." 6 months earlier, Amara Brooks stood on the narrow front porch of the only home she had known since childhood, staring at a suitcase that refused to close. One will was missing, the zipper caught on the sleeve of her college sweatshirt, and everything she still owned had been reduced to whatever she could fit inside before the rain started falling harder. Behind her, warm yellow light spilled through the living room window onto the wet porch boards. She could hear the television playing inside. She could hear dishes being moved in the kitchen. Ordinary sounds from an ordinary evening, which somehow made what was happening feel even colder. "Mom, please." Amara turned toward the closed front door. No answer came. 20 minutes earlier, an argument had filled that house after her stepfather, Raymond, accused her of being ungrateful and disrespectful because she refused to hand over the money she had saved to return to community college. For nearly 2 years, Amara had worked morning shifts at a coffee shop and evening shifts at a grocery store. She helped with rent. She bought groceries. She paid part of the electric bill whenever her mother fell behind. She had postponed school because the family always seemed to need one more thing from her. But the $900 in her savings account was supposed to be different. It was supposed to be her way back to the life she had quietly placed on hold. Raymond demanded it. Amara finally said no. That single word changed the temperature of the room. Her mother, Denise, did not defend her. Instead, she stood beside Raymond and told Amara that family meant sacrifice. Amara looked at the woman who had once braided her hair before elementary school, who had kissed scraped knees and stayed awake beside her during thunderstorms, and tried to understand when love had become something measured by how much she was willing to surrender. "I have sacrificed," Amara had whispered. Denise looked away. Then came the sentence Amara would remember long after every other word faded. "If living here is so difficult for you, maybe you should leave." Amara had waited for her mother to take it back. She never did. Now, outside in the November rain, Amara pulled the suitcase upright and checked her phone. $43 remained in her checking account after paying the family internet bill that morning. Her closest friend was away at college in Wisconsin. The coffee shop had already closed. She had nowhere obvious to go. Then her phone vibrated. For one foolish second, hope warmed her chest. She thought her mother had changed her mind. The message contained 4 words. "Do not come back." Amara read them twice. Through the window, she saw the curtain move. Her mother was standing there, watching. Amara waited. 1 second. 5. 10. The door remained closed. Something inside her became very still. She wiped the rain from her face, though by then it hardly mattered, gripped the damaged handle of her suitcase, and walked down the porch steps. She did not know where she would sleep that night. She did not know that less than 2 hours later, she would find herself outside the iron gates of Vincent Moretti's estate. She only knew that every step away from that house hurt, and somehow, she kept walking. By the time Amara reached the Moretti estate, she had been walking for nearly 2 hours, and the November rain had turned from a drizzle into a cold, relentless curtain. Her sneakers made soft, wet sounds against the pavement. One hand pulled the broken suitcase behind her while the other held her coat, closed against the wind. She had tried 3 places along the way. A 24-hour diner had allowed her to sit inside for a while, but she could not afford to keep ordering coffee. A small motel wanted more than $80 for a room. The bus station downtown was too far to reach on foot before midnight. So she kept moving through streets that grew quieter, past large houses hidden behind stone walls and bare trees, until her phone finally died. That was when she saw the iron gates. Beyond them stood a sprawling limestone mansion glowing beneath warm exterior lights, its windows golden against the black sky. Amara did not know who lived there. She only noticed the covered stone entrance beside the gate and thought it might shelter her from the rain for 5 minutes. She lowered herself onto the cold ledge, pulled her suitcase close, and wrapped both arms around her knees. She told herself she would rest until the shaking stopped. She never noticed the black sedan approaching until headlights washed across the wet pavement. The vehicle slowed. Inside, Vincent Moretti looked through the rain-streaked window and saw a young woman sitting beside his gate. His expression hardened with immediate suspicion. People did not accidentally end up outside his property at midnight. "Who is she?" he asked. The driver glanced toward the security display. "Nobody on the visitor list, Mr. Moretti." Vincent watched as one of his security men approached Amara beneath an umbrella. She stood too quickly, nearly losing her balance, and immediately reached for her suitcase. Even from the car, Vincent could see fear in the way she held herself, but there was something else too. Embarrassment. She looked less like someone trying to enter the estate than someone terrified of being accused of belonging there. "I am sorry," Amara told the guard. "I was only trying to get out of the rain. I will leave." The guard looked toward Vincent's car for instructions. Amara started pulling the suitcase away, its damaged corner scraping loudly across the pavement. She made it perhaps 20 feet before stopping beneath a streetlight. Her shoulders trembled. Vincent remained silent. He had built his life around caution, around recognizing when appearances concealed motives. Yet nothing about this looked calculated. Her coat was soaked through. Her suitcase was barely holding together. She had not asked for money, entry, or even a telephone. She was simply trying to disappear before anyone could tell her she was unwanted again. Vincent opened the car door. Cold rain struck the shoulders of his charcoal overcoat as he stepped onto the pavement. "Mississippi." Amara stopped, but did not turn immediately. What is your name? Amara Brooks, sir. Where are you going? That question finally made her look at him. Beneath the streetlight, Vincent saw the answer before she spoke. I do not know. 3 quiet words. No performance. No elaborate explanation. Vincent glanced at the dead phone in her hand, then at the suitcase, then toward the mansion glowing behind the gates. Every instinct developed over years told him to investigate first and trust later. But another instinct, one he had spent years ignoring, told him that investigation could wait until morning. Bring her inside, Vincent said. Amara stared at him. Sir, I cannot pay for anything. Vincent turned toward the open gates. I did not ask you to. And for the first time that night, a door opened before Amara had to beg. Morning arrived quietly at the Moretti estate, pale winter sunlight stretching across polished hardwood floors and the long windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Amara woke in a guest room larger than the apartment her family had once rented, surrounded by cream-colored walls, soft blankets, and a silence so complete that for several seconds she forgot where she was. Then she saw her broken suitcase beside the chair, and everything returned. Her mother, the rain, the iron gates, Vincent Moretti telling his staff to bring her inside. Someone had left clean clothes folded outside her door during the night, along with a note explaining that breakfast would be served downstairs whenever she was ready. Amara stared at the clothes for a long time before touching them. Kindness had become suspicious to her. In her experience, almost everything given eventually became something owed. Downstairs, Vincent sat at the far end of a walnut dining table reading through a stack of documents while black coffee cooled beside his hand. He looked up when Amara entered. Her posture was careful, almost apologetic, as though she feared occupying too much space. Good morning, he said. Good morning, Mr. Moretti. A plate of eggs, toast, fruit, and bacon had been prepared for her. Amara stopped beside the chair. Is this for me? Vincent glanced at the plate. Unless someone else appeared at my gate overnight. For the first time, the faintest smile touched her face. She sat and ate slowly, trying not to look hungry. Vincent noticed anyway. He noticed how she divided the toast in half and wrapped one piece inside a napkin. He noticed her eyes moving toward the exits whenever a staff member entered. Most of all, he noticed that she never asked for anything. When breakfast ended, Vincent placed a white envelope on the table and pushed it toward her. Amara opened it carefully. Inside was enough cash for several nights at a decent hotel, meals, transportation, and a replacement phone. Her expression changed immediately. I cannot take this. You need somewhere to stay. I know. She closed the envelope and slid it back. But I cannot take your money. Vincent studied her. Most people who entered his world wanted something before they even knew his name. Amara had arrived with nothing and was refusing the easiest thing he could give. Then what do you want? He asked. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. A job. Vincent leaned back slightly. A job. I can clean. I can cook basic meals. I worked at a coffee shop and a grocery store. I am good with customers. I learn fast. Her voice grew steadier with every sentence. I do not need charity, sir. I need a chance. The room became still. Vincent had expected tears, explanations, perhaps a request to stay another night. He had not expected dignity from someone whose life had been stripped down to a damaged suitcase. Why did you leave home? He asked. Amara looked toward the window. I did not leave. Vincent understood the difference immediately. He did not press further. You are not working for me today, he said. Amara's face fell. Mr. Moretti, please. Because you have been awake half the night. Your shoes are still wet, and you look exhausted. He picked up his coffee. You can stay here while we figure out what comes next. Amara stared at him, uncertain. And what will I owe you? Vincent's eyes settled on hers. Nothing. She seemed more shaken by that answer than she had been by the money. Vincent watched her struggle to understand an offer without conditions, and something about it disturbed him more deeply than he expected. Someone had taught this young woman that every kindness came with a price. He found himself wondering who had done it, and why they had allowed her to believe it for so long. During the first week, Amara behaved less like a guest, and more like someone waiting to be told she had overstayed her welcome. She made her bed so tightly each morning that the blankets looked untouched. She folded the towels after using them. She carried her empty breakfast plate into the kitchen despite the housekeeper, Mrs. Callahan, repeatedly telling her she did not need to. But it was the refrigerator that first made Vincent understand how deeply uncertainty had shaped her. One evening, he entered the kitchen after a late meeting and found Amara standing in front of the open refrigerator, staring inside without taking anything. "Are you looking for something?" he asked. She startled and immediately closed the door. "No, sir. I was just checking." "Checking what?" Amara hesitated. Whether it was all right to have something. Vincent looked at the refrigerator, then back at her. "It is food, Amara." "I know." Her voice became smaller. At home, Raymond kept track. She did not explain further. She did not need to. Vincent opened the refrigerator again. "If you are hungry, you eat. You do not ask permission." Amara nodded, but several minutes later he saw her choose only an apple. The next morning, Vincent quietly asked Mrs. Callahan what Amara actually liked. Cinnamon cereal, strawberry yogurt, turkey sandwiches with extra pickles, hot chocolate instead of coffee. Within 2 days, those things appeared in the kitchen without anyone mentioning why. Amara noticed. Of course she noticed. She simply did not know what to do with the feeling. Then came the bedroom. Mrs. Callahan discovered that Amara had been sleeping on the small couch beside the window instead of the queen-size bed. When Vincent asked why, Amara looked embarrassed. "The bed is too nice." He thought he had misunderstood. Too nice for what? "For me." Vincent went silent. He had negotiated with wealthy men who treated luxury like oxygen. Yet 5 words from a 19-year-old girl left him without an immediate answer. "Amara, look at me." She raised her eyes. "There is nothing in this house that you are too poor, too ordinary, or too unwanted to use." Her expression tightened at the final word. Vincent regretted it immediately, but Amara only nodded. That night, she slept in the bed. Small changes followed. Her wet sneakers were replaced after Vincent noticed the sole separating near the heel. A warm winter coat appeared beside the front door in her size. When she found it, she searched for the price tag before putting it on. "How much do I owe you?" she asked. "Nothing." "Mr. Moretti, you keep saying that. Because you keep asking." She almost smiled. Almost. Yet Vincent understood that clothes and food could not repair what had been damaged. So when he learned that Amara had once planned to study early childhood education at a community college before family expenses consumed her savings, he did not immediately reach for his checkbook. Instead, he placed a college catalog beside her breakfast plate. Amara stared at it. "Mrs. Callahan said you wanted to go back." "Someday." "Why someday?" Her fingers rested carefully on the cover. "Because someday costs money." Vincent said nothing. He watched her open the catalog as though it contained a life she had stopped allowing herself to imagine. For the first time since arriving, Amara began talking without being asked. She told him she loved working with children. She told him she wanted a classroom filled with books and bright paper stars. She told him she had once been accepted into the program, but never enrolled. Vincent listened to every word. And that evening, Amara realized something unfamiliar was happening inside the Moretti house. Nobody was asking what she could sacrifice for them. Someone was finally asking what she wanted for herself. 3 weeks after Amara arrived at the Moretti estate, Vincent discovered her birthday by accident. Mrs. Callahan had left an emergency contact form on his desk, and beside Amara's name was a date less than a week away. November 28th. Vincent stared at it longer than necessary. At dinner that evening, he asked casually, "Do you have plans next Friday?" Amara looked up from her soup. "I work Friday morning." Vincent had helped her arrange transportation so she could keep her coffee shop job while deciding what came next. "After work." She shrugged. "Nothing special. It is your birthday." Her spoon stopped halfway to the bowl. "How did you know?" "Paperwork." Amara gave a small laugh, but Vincent noticed the discomfort behind it. "It is really not a big deal. Birthdays usually are." "Not mine." Vincent waited. Amara lowered her eyes. "We did not really celebrate them at home. Money was always tight. When I was little, my mom would sometimes buy cupcakes from the grocery store, but after she married Raymond, we stopped doing much." She smiled as though trying to make the memory easier for him. "It is fine. I am used to it." Vincent disliked those 4 words more every time he heard them. On Friday evening, Amara returned from work expecting the house to look exactly as it always did. Instead, the dining room glowed beneath warm chandelier light, and a small chocolate cake sat in the center of the table with 20 candles. Mrs. Callahan stood nearby smiling. Vincent waited beside a stack of neatly wrapped gifts. Amara stopped in the doorway. "What is this?" "Dinner," Vincent said. Her eyes moved to the cake. For me? Vincent almost smiled. There is nobody else turning 20 today. Amara covered her mouth. For several seconds, she said nothing. The celebration was not extravagant by Moretti standards. Vincent had deliberately kept it small. Her favorite pasta, strawberry lemonade, a soft blue winter scarf, 3 novels she had mentioned wanting to read, a new backpack for school. Each gift carried evidence that someone had been listening, that seemed to affect her more than the gifts themselves. Then Vincent handed her one final envelope. Amara's smile faded nervously. Please tell me this is not money. Open it. Inside was confirmation that her community college enrollment had been restored for the spring semester, along with information showing that her tuition, books, and transportation expenses had been covered. Amara read the first page, then read it again. Vincent. It was the first time she had used his name without Mr. Moretti. Neither of them seemed to notice until the room became very quiet. I cannot accept this. Yes, you can. This is too much. No. Losing your future because everyone else needed something from you was too much. Her eyes filled, but Vincent did not move closer. He understood by now that Amara needed room to feel things without believing she owed anyone a reaction. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this? Vincent looked toward the college papers in her hands. Because you told me what you wanted. People do not usually remember things I say. His expression softened. Then you have been surrounded by people who were not listening. Amara looked at the cake, the books, the backpack, then back at him. You remembered everything. Vincent nodded once. Of course I remembered. That was when the tears finally came, quiet and unexpected, not because someone had spent money on her, but because someone had paid attention. Later, after the candles had burned low and Mrs. Callahan had gone to bed, Amara stood alone in the dining room, holding the college acceptance papers against her chest. For most of her life, she had believed love meant making herself smaller so everyone else could have more. Tonight, for the first time, someone had made room for her dreams instead. By early February, Amara had begun to recognize the Moretti estate as home, though she still hesitated before using the word. Her spring classes had started. Her new backpack was already crowded with textbooks and colored notebooks, and every weekday morning a driver took her to campus before continuing to the coffee shop for her afternoon shift. Vincent had suggested she leave the job so she could focus entirely on school, but Amara refused. This time, he did not argue. He was learning that protecting her did not mean making every decision for her. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, Amara walked out of her education class and stopped cold. Her mother was waiting near the campus entrance. Denise Brooks stood beneath a gray Chicago sky, wearing the same cream coat Amara remembered from home. For one impossible second, Amara felt 19 again, standing on that porch with rain running down her face. Amara. Denise smiled carefully. Baby, look at you. Amara tightened her grip on her backpack. How did you find me? Your cousin saw a picture online. Someone posted photographs from a charity dinner you attended with Mr. Moretti. There it was. Vincent's name. Amara heard it immediately. Denise stepped closer. You look beautiful. Healthy. We have been worried sick. Amara stared at her. You had my phone number. Denise's smile weakened. Things were complicated. For 3 months. Raymond was angry. I was trying to keep peace in the house. Amara looked away. She had once imagined this reunion 100 different ways. In some versions, her mother apologized. In others, Amara screamed. But standing there now, she mostly felt tired. Denise reached for her hand. Family forgives, sweetheart. Amara slowly pulled her hand back. Who exactly needs forgiving? Denise became silent. Before she could answer, a black sedan stopped at the curb. Vincent stepped out, having decided to pick Amara up himself after a meeting ended early. He saw Denise, then saw Amara's expression, and understood immediately. He approached without rushing. Amara. She looked at him, and the tension in her shoulders eased almost invisibly. Denise noticed. Mr. Moretti, I am Denise Brooks. Amara's mother. Vincent offered a polite nod. Nothing more. I was hoping we could discuss my daughter coming home. Amara's head turned sharply. Vincent did not look at Denise. He looked at Amara. Is that what you want? Denise blinked. She is my daughter. I heard you. Vincent's voice remained calm. I asked Amara. The distinction landed heavily between them. Amara swallowed. I do not want to go back. Vincent nodded once. Then you are not going back. Denise's face tightened. You cannot keep her from her family. I am not keeping her from anyone. Vincent opened the car door, then stepped aside. She decides where she goes. Amara stared at the open door. Months earlier, someone else had opened a door and ordered her out. Now a man powerful enough to control almost every room he entered was refusing to control her. Denise lowered her voice. Amara, please. We made mistakes. Raymond lost his job. The mortgage is behind. Your little sister needs things. We need to talk as a family. Amara felt the old reflex awaken instantly. Bills. Responsibility. Sacrifice. Need. The familiar chain wrapped around her heart before she recognized it. So that is why you came. Denise looked wounded. That is not fair. Amara's eyes filled, but her voice remained steady. Neither was leaving me outside. Silence settled over the sidewalk. Vincent said nothing. He did not rescue her from the moment. He simply waited beside the open car door until Amara made her choice. She climbed inside. As Vincent closed the door gently, Denise called after her. Family is still family. Amara looked through the window at the woman who had taught her that love required surrendering pieces of herself. For the first time, she understood that sharing blood with someone did not give them ownership of her future. And as the sedan pulled away from the curb, she realized the hardest part was still ahead. Her family had finally come looking for her, but they had not come because they missed the girl they abandoned. 3 months later, Amara stood at the top of the Moretti ballroom staircase, and the memory of that February afternoon felt both distant and dangerously close. Spring had softened Chicago outside, but inside the estate, crystal chandeliers scattered warm light across polished marble as guests gathered for Vincent's annual education charity gala. Amara wore the sapphire blue gown Mrs. Callahan had helped her choose, yet the most important thing she carried into the room was invisible. She had finished her first semester with strong grades. She had begun volunteering twice a week at an after-school reading program. She had learned to open the refrigerator without asking permission, to sleep without wondering whether she would still have a home in the morning, and to accept kindness without immediately calculating how she would repay it. Then she heard the voice. Amara. Denise Brooks stood across the ballroom, exactly where the memory had begun 6 months after that rainy night. Amara's breath caught. Her mother moved quickly through the guests. Baby, we have been looking everywhere for you. Vincent stepped forward, his expression calm. Funny. Mothers usually do not leave their daughters sleeping outside in the rain. The nearby conversations disappeared into silence. Denise stopped. Mr. Moretti, this is a family matter. Vincent glanced at Amara's trembling hand, then deliberately stepped half a pace aside. Then Amara should decide what happens next. Denise seemed almost offended by the answer. She is 20 years old. She is confused. She belongs with her family. Amara looked at her mother. Once, those words would have been enough to make her question everything. Tonight, they sounded different. I called you, Amara said quietly. Denise blinked. What? The first week after I left. I called 3 times. Denise lowered her eyes. Raymond thought it was better to give everyone space. I was not asking for space. I was asking whether my mother still wanted me. The room remained perfectly still. Denise stepped closer. We made mistakes, Amara. Families make mistakes. But you cannot replace us with strangers because a wealthy man bought you nice clothes and paid for school. Vincent's jaw tightened, but he did not interrupt. Amara looked down at the blue fabric of her gown, then back at her mother. You think this is about the dress? Her voice did not rise. When I first came here, I asked permission to eat. I slept on a couch because I thought I was not good enough for the bed. Every time someone gave me something, I asked what I owed them. Denise's face changed. I did not know that. You never asked. The words landed softly. That made them heavier. Amara turned toward Vincent for a moment. He did not teach me that expensive things make me valuable. He taught me that I was allowed to have a future that belonged to me. Then she faced her mother again. For years, I thought love meant giving until there was nothing left of me. I thought being a good daughter meant never saying no. Her eyes glistened, but her voice remained steady. He never asked me to earn kindness. Denise reached toward her. Amara, please come home. Amara looked at the hand extended between them and remembered another door, another night, another version of herself waiting in the rain for someone to choose her. She gently stepped back. I hope you and Raymond find a way through whatever you are facing. I truly do. But I am not going back. Denise stared at her. Then what are we supposed to be? Amara took a slow breath. That depends on whether you can learn to love me without needing something from me. Nobody moved. Vincent said nothing. He did not need to. Amara had finally spoken for the girl who once could not. And beneath the chandeliers, surrounded by people who had witnessed every word, she understood that Vincent's greatest gift had never been money, clothes, or tuition. It was standing beside her, while she learned that her own voice was enough. Long after the final guests had left, Amara remained in the quiet ballroom beneath chandeliers that had been dimmed to a soft golden glow. Outside the tall windows, Chicago shimmered in the distance, and the lake beyond the estate looked almost black beneath the spring night. Vincent found her standing beside the staircase, barefoot now, her heels resting neatly beside a chair. "You handled yourself well," he said. Amara looked toward him. "I was terrified." "Those things can both be true." A small smile touched her face. 6 months earlier, she might have apologized for making the evening uncomfortable. Tonight, she simply allowed the silence to settle. Vincent held a cream-colored envelope in one hand. "I have something for you." Amara immediately narrowed her eyes. "You already gave me a birthday, tuition, books, a coat, and approximately enough strawberry yogurt to feed an entire college." Vincent almost laughed. "Open it." She accepted the envelope and removed several pages. At first, she did not understand what she was reading. Then she saw her name, the Amara Brooks Opportunity Fund. Her eyes lifted sharply. Vincent explained that the fund would provide small scholarships for young women facing housing instability or family hardship who wanted to continue their education. Amara stared at the papers. "You named it after me?" "Only if you approve." That mattered. Even now, he was asking. "I thought you could help decide how it works," Vincent continued. "You know what someone in that position actually needs better than I ever could." Amara looked down again. 6 months earlier, $43 had separated her from having nothing. Now someone was asking her to help create a door for girls standing where she once stood. "I do not know how to run a scholarship fund." Neither did anyone before they learned. She laughed softly through sudden tears. "You always have an answer." "Not always." Vincent reached into his pocket and placed a small brass key on top of the papers. Amara stared at it. "What is this?" "The front door. I already come through the front door, with staff letting you in." He pushed the key gently toward her. "Now you have your own." Amara did not touch it immediately. The object was ordinary, barely larger than her thumb, but it carried more weight than every expensive thing she had received since arriving. Her first night here, she had stood outside an iron gate believing every door could eventually close against her. Now Vincent was giving her a key. "What happens when I finish college?" she asked quietly. "You graduate. I mean here. What happens when I do not need help anymore?" Vincent understood the question beneath the question. What happens when I stop being useful? What happens when I become inconvenient? What happens when I no longer have a reason to stay? He answered carefully. "Amara, you were never here because you needed help." Her brow tightened. "Then why am I here?" Vincent looked at the young woman who had arrived soaked by November rain and had somehow changed the atmosphere of a house built around silence. "Because this became your home." Amara's eyes filled. "Why did you do all of this for me?" Vincent was quiet for a moment. "Because being abandoned never meant you were unworthy of being loved." She closed her fingers around the key. There was no dramatic applause, no crowded ballroom left to witness the moment. Only 2 people standing beneath fading lights while the house settled around them. Months later, the first scholarship from Amara's fund would go to a young woman trying to finish nursing school after losing her housing. Amara would personally read the application twice. Years later, she would graduate and become the teacher she once believed she could never afford to be. And the brass key would remain on her key ring through every apartment, every classroom, and every new chapter that followed. Because Vincent had never rescued her, so she would remain dependent on him. He had simply given her enough safety to discover that she could build a life of her own. Amara looked around the quiet room, then toward the hallway leading deeper into the house. For the first time, she did not feel like a guest, a burden, or someone waiting for permission to stay. She picked up her shoes, held the scholarship papers against her chest, and walked upstairs with the key in her hand. Once, she had been given a place to sleep. Somewhere along the way, she had been given something far greater. She had been given a home.